Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name is Lisa Elvin Stoltari, and I'm a genealogist and a passionate traveler. And this is How Roots Will Travel. Over the last few years, I've been featuring Les Filles du Roi, and this past January, I decided to start a parallel series, Les Filles Mariées, and this is what we're doing today. We're looking at the marriageable girl and finding out more about this amazing history that they bring to us. And so there are only 260 of them, much less than les filles mariées and les filles du roi. But their stories are deep and intricate and woven into the tapestry that is the history of Quebec. So let's have a look at episode 38. We're already there. But before we begin, let me show you ways you can support the channel. Subscribe, like, and notify. All of that helps my logarithms. If you care to support financially the channel, we have Patreon, which is a monthly subscription running from $1 to $25. And then we also have a coffee, which is a one-time, or you can make it a monthly as well. And then on my website, you can also go and look at and do a PayPal, but you can also look up some previous episodes alphabetically or numerically. So have a look at that and see if there's something that can help you out there. So without further ado, let's get to know Les Filles à Marier. So Les Filles à Marier was really from 1634 to 1662. After that, we're entering into the territory of Les Filles du Roi, because that was a program. Les Filles à Marier is just a kind of a blanket term for all of the women who came to New France from 1634, when the French took back New France from England that had acquired it under conquest in 1629. And they began to really want to populate a colony. And so they had women come, either recruited or sent by a priest, that sort of thing. They came one by one. Sometimes a couple of them at a time, but certainly not like the 90 and 120 boatloads that would come with Les Filles du Roi. And you can see that it is 28 years of women coming across. And that's 28 years, 260 women, not a lot. And so it was having a hard time. Les Filles du Roi, Les Filles Mariées did what they could, but there wasn't enough of them, and they weren't as frequent. And it really did not work according to the plan. And so that's why Les Filles du Roi came about. The government came in and said, you know what, we need to really amp this up. But Les Filles Mariées had begun the process. And so it is important to honor the incredible courage they have. And I have said many times, and I will say it again, if Les Filles du Roi are the founding mothers, these are the founding grandmothers. Truly amazing women. Let's get to know one of them. Mariée, episode 38, is Catherine Charles. And this is a viewer request. I do not have her in my file, so let's get to know Catherine a little bit better. Catherine was born in 1637 in a town called a commune called Charenton-le-Pont. Her parents were Samuel Charles and Françoise Cochet. As you can see, it's part of Paris, Île-de-France, and part of the département it's like inside. And so the département is Val-de-Marne. So inside of that tiny little purple, there is a smaller département. So it's like a suburb of Paris, essentially. Charenton-le-Pont gets its name literally from the word for bridge, pont, as it sits at the mouth of the river Marne. The Saint Pierre Parish dates from the 11th century, and I actually have I was able to watch a YouTube video on this place. So if this is your particular ancestry, I wanted to connect you up with a little video on what Charenton-le-Pont is all about. So check it out. Catherine would be an orphan by the time she came to New France. She actually came across with Jeanne Mance, who is pictured there in the statue in downtown Old Montreal, and a picture of her as she was. And then this is a book about les passagers du Saint-André, the recrue de 1659. There was quite a number of ladies here. This is a little bit different passage. She did come with not 100 women, but a dozen or so women, and they came at the request of Jeanne Mouse. So this was her passage. She was not going to be a nun or a nurse or anything like that, but Jeanne Mouse went aboard and recruited more women and brought them over. Like I said, this is about 1659. The groom that she selected and who selected her was Urbain Jeté, and he was born in 1627 in a city called La Flèche. And his parents were Mathurin Jeté and Barbe Hulin. La Flèche means the arrow in French. And so he's from Le Pays de la Loire region. You can see it on the upper left region of France. And inside that region, we have the Département of Sarthe. And you can actually see La Flèche. It's actually it's kind of at the very top, the bottom of the Sarthe Département, almost in another department. So that's interesting. This picture on your right is a former castle and is now City Hall. The picture on your bottom right is of the military academy that was founded in the 15th and 16th century. We have the Church of Saint Thomas. I'm not sure where Urbain was baptized. This is the main church of the city, and it was built in the 12th and rebuilt in the 15th and 18th century. Now, this interesting staircase comes from the ancient hospital in La Flèche, and it is now in the Montreal Hôtel Dieu Hospital. It is an exhibit, if you will, and you can visit it. So this is a part of La Flèche that was given to the to Montreal to mark the 350th anniversary, I believe. And so just a very interesting kind of, wow, this was the original staircase where they would have had in the hospital at La Flèche, but now is in Montreal. So Urbain would come to New France as part of La Grande Recrue de 1653, and he's listed on the monument that you can find in Montreal. He was a mason and a long sawyer. I'm going to give you the link to an excellent description of what long sawyers are. That is part of the French-Canadian genealogist's website. She has done a remarkable job in illustrating what kind of an occupation that is. So look for that in your notes. Presumably, Urbain arrived in 1653, and then 6 years later would have ended his, his tenure and his engagé, his contract. He would be free to marry, would presumably have land, and obviously she had just come across about a month before, so there was no time lost, and they were married October 26, 1659. Montreal was originally known as Ville-Marie and founded by Paul de Chomedy, Sal de Maisonneuve, and it was, it was founded and kind of almost became extinct, and that is why La Grande Recrue, of which Urbain was part of, came and saved Montreal. And without that Grande Recrue, I doubt we would be talking about Montreal as anything actually. It really did make a difference because not only was the Notre Dame congregation established by Sister Marguerite Bourgeois, but the first school was established. It created a sense of community that eventually grew into the mighty Montreal. We have the 1666 census where we have Urbain, Catherine, their first daughter, Catherine, Marie, Nicolas, and Jean. And then we have the 1667 census, which ironically is pretty accurate in terms of age. We don't often see that. We see that they have 2 beasts, 2 cows, and 8 alpins, about 6 acres of land. Would go on to have 13 children. Catherine married Guillaume Gournay and had 1 child who survived. Now remember that Catherine was 13 and Guillaume was 36. Upon his death, she married Charles de Mers but did not have any children with him. Marie Barbe married Nicolas de Mers and had 2 children, both of whom survived. Nicolas married Antoinette Catherine Giard and had 5 children, all of whom survived. Jean would pass away at the age of 16. Urbain would marry Marie-Françoise Chevigny and had 7 children, all of whom made it. And have Elisabeth, who married Michel Demers and had 1 child, who made it to adulthood. And then she married Jacques Barry and had 3 children, all of whom made it. Pierre was killed by the Iroquois in 1692. Anne married André Demers and had 8 children, all of whom survived. Paul would marry Martine Demers and have 5 children, all of whom made it to adulthood. Madeleine married Robert Demers and had 9 children, all of whom survived. Louis Charles married Marie-Elisabeth Andegrave and had 4 children, all of whom survived. Pierre died at 37, but he had not married and did not leave any descendants. And Françoise died in infancy. You can see in the 1681 census, we have Urbain, we have his wife, their children. So we know that Catherine and Marie Barbe have already left the house. We have Nicolas, we have Urbain, we have Elisabeth, we have Pierre, who's still alive, and then we have Anne and Paul and Madeleine, and we have Charles and Françoise. So interesting that Pierre is not featured on that. He probably, I'm not really sure why he's not there. So sometimes people just are not present at the census taking. So now it's important to always be looking at that, and just don't make assumptions. Just kind of say, okay, why weren't they there? And they, at this point, have 1 gun. They have 4 goats and 20 arpents valeur, which is about 17 acres of land. Urbain would die at 56. He and Catherine would have been married 25 years. Catherine would pass away herself at the age of 55. Both of them dying relatively young, even for the period that we're talking about. As of 1729, they would have 206 descendants. And we find Urbain in our French-Canadian Ancestors in the 20th volume, volume 20. And I'm giving you the links for you to have a look at our French-Canadian Ancestors, the Facebook page, if you want to go on there and get the information, or if you can get your hands on that volume. On page 95 of that volume, they list all of the different names and the variations of jeté, because you can imagine how that would have been challenging to pronounce or spell. Also realize that many times they would put a deep name next to it, which then would become the name. So that's part of the challenge of French-Canadian genealogy. And of course, one of the most famous genealogists, René Jeté, he has since passed away, but he wrote an incredible book called the Dictionnaire généalogique des familles du Québec from des origines all the way to 1730. René Jeté is often quoted and noted. So this is his particular ancestry. So, the Urbain keeps giving to us, even, in death, his descendants have continued to, really make certain that we remember all of who came before us. And these are the resources that I like to use for when I'm doing particularly Pierre Marie. I mentioned a little while ago the French-Canadian genealogist when we were talking about his profession. I'm going to put the link up there. It's in there. You can have a look at that. I would really recommend you check out that site because she really goes into depth. It's a wonderfully creative site. So have a look at that and see if it can help you in terms of understanding. It really is a very intuitive kind of website that I find gives me insights that isn't just strictly about dates and numbers and things like that. You know, it really gives me a flavor. So have a look at that. So ends episode 38. Catherine Schall marrying into the Jeté family, producing so many, 200, over 200 descendants as of 1729. Um, Truly one of the pioneers of Montreal. We can certainly make and really interacted with so many because both of them, one of them came on the Grande Recrue of 1659 with Jeanne Mance, and the other, Herbert, came with Marguerite Bourgeois. So, I mean, they really touched history. So it's just an amazing, amazing history. I didn't go into detail in this particular episode about the troubles between the Demers and the Jeté family. If you want some more insight into that, Catherine, it's at the last part of her life. You can have a look at the episode 37 where I talk about the Demers family and Marie Chef de Ville and some trouble that they had between the two of them. I just didn't want to repeat myself. So, but we want to make certain that we thank Catherine Schall for being someone who was able to come to New France, be part of an expedition, really, and really be one of the founders of Montreal. And of course, her great, 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 great son, grandson, René Jeté, you know, gave us so much in terms of knowledge and genealogical framework. So we are grateful, obviously, to Urbain and Catherine for making it through and making certain that we are still receiving of their gifts. So thank you so much, Catherine, for your contribution, for your sacrifice, and we bless your memory. I also want to say thank you to my patrons and supporters and my subscribers. Want to make certain that all of you know the role that you play in building this and making certain that this continues, this experiment that I've been doing. I really am grateful. So thank you so very much. Special shout out to Shelby for allowing me to use some of her artwork in this. And we also have in the Femme Mariée a design by Julie Freedom. So thank you to both of you. So we'll see you on episode 39. And until then, au revoir.